You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 410, The Fallen Star, Bell and Burryaga. It is our spotlight episode where we're going to focus on two of the more important characters, in my opinion, two of the best characters, in my opinion, that came out of this book. And it's been a long time coming. I'm really excited to finally kind of sit down and talk about Bell and Burryaga, their relationship, some of the hardships, and really kind of get to the question of why were they in this book? What was the purpose of them being in the novel, and what kind of impact did they have? And speaking of impacts,
I thought it was speaking of people who were not sure why they're here.
No, come on, that's so negative. I would never say something like that.
Never know with you, my friend.
Yeah.
How are you doing, man?
I'm good. It's been a little stressful this week, but for personal matters, but things are good. So things
You are coming out the other side of it, though. That's what's important.
Yes, and yeah, there's been it's been great. How about you? How are things going with you? I know you've been busy as well.
Yeah, no, it's been great, and man, I really enjoyed listening to the show you guys did with Patreon a few days ago, which was really cool with Cole Cab and Lauren talking about Ben Swolo there. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you're a Patreon member and you've not had a chance to listen to that episode, I think we called it The Rise and Fall of Ben Solo, and it was a show that was supposed to be primarily focused on Ben Solo himself. What very little we got from him in The Rise of Skywalker. I thought all three of them did a really great job, and I've heard a lot of great feedback. So thanks again for doing that. And the exciting part is that's now the second episode, so it's a thing officially. We'll be doing more of those episodes. So if you're a Patreon member, stay tuned to the Patreon page and Discord, where we'll likely post more invitations for anybody that's interested in coming on. I'm trying to keep it down to like 3 hosts at most. That rhymed, but no more than 3. Just because with me now there's 4, and I tend to be long-winded at times. So yeah, just trying to keep the show
3 at most. 4's a bore.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, to reiterate that, man, great job to all 3 of them. They really did. It was a good episode. It was a lot of fun. I like always hearing the different perspectives, and that we can get our listeners, especially our Patreon folks, in there. It's a really cool kind of perk to be able to offer. So great job on a great topic for you, and then having a good group there.
Yeah. And speaking of which, Lauren is with us tonight. Hello, Lauren, Stephanie, Jonathan, as always. Good to see you guys here. More people will pop in shortly. Okay, before we get started into our show, there's a whole plethora of stuff going on with Celebration. Why don't you kick that off for us here?
Yeah, it's all around us because we're the only thing that matters with Celebration, right?
Right.
So lots of Cantina Cast Celebration news. So first and foremost, at the top of our screen, if you're watching the live stream, we have a new logo for Celebration, courtesy of our Albert Padilla here. So again, a take on the Cantina Cast classic logo with a little bit of Disney spirit thrown in there from Anaheim. So again, really great job, Albert. What's really cool about this is you can go get a shirt with it, or a sticker, or a face mask, because face masks are still required in California at this time. And you can do those over at earglumedia.com/store. And not only will it take you to that kind of classic look, but Albert's loaded some alternate logos there. And so again, just a lot of different fun. You can pick different shirts, different colors, all the things, and have at it, have fun. I know we've already ordered ours, so they should be coming in here hopefully shortly, and that will be a lot of fun. Yeah, so wear your fly the colors for us, so we know you're there when we see you there in California in a few weeks.
Yeah, there was and I will say there was a shirt that was removed.
But you know what? Public. I think mine's getting shipped though.
I got my order in too. Did it really? Okay, I got one in too before they took it down. So
we'll see. They're going to be collector's items.
Yeah, well, I guess. But there was a Black Chrysanthemum shirt that I did in the font and style of Black Sabbath, the logo. I thought it came up really well, and I got my shirt in
a little too well.
Maybe a little too well. And then we got a flag. So we've been I think we're 10-0 against Disney and Lucasfilm on copyright infringements. And I think this is our first loss. So I'll take the loss. But to be fair,
was it the Osborne camp?
Yeah. No, it's
Sharon!
It was So it's a company, and I won't call them out by name. It's a company that
Yeah.
represents that brand.
Sure.
They're the ones that sent the letter to us saying, "Hey, we took it down because of blah blah blah, and it was too close." And then I go on there, and there's still other shirts on TeePublic that are
There
being
are
sold.
others. There are others that are way more infringing than ours was.
And yeah, so I don't know why they picked us, but
And yours was 100% original, right? So
yeah, no, it didn't. It was custom, so be it. That's the way cookie crumbles, right? Not a big deal.
right.
But I did get a shirt ordered in, so I think you did as well. So
Yep.
we may have to wear those at Celebration. But go on, let's go. What else we got going on?
More news. So podcast stage with Tarkin's Top Shelf. We have a day and a time, so we will be there Thursday, first day of the show, May 26th at 11 a.m. And remember, that's Pacific time. Now, what's cool is that we believe everything they told us is that we will be able to live stream this, or they will have a live stream available. It may not be on our live stream feed, but once we get that kind of clarified, we will definitely put that out on the website and Discord, on social media, so that you guys can all tune in. They didn't offer this last time, so this is really exciting because we're kind of in a cave usually, and there's no internet. So
there's no internet. I mean, it's like I got questions about that because we only get like a 1.5.
When they said it, because they said, well, they only expect no internet, but at best expect 1985 internet.
Yeah.
And
so not conducive to a good streaming environment if that's all they give us. Hope if they do allow us to bring stuff in and jack into a higher pipe, then I think that'll work. Otherwise, we'll just record it and then we'll do what we did and release it like as we did 2 years ago. So 3 years ago, whatever it was. My gosh.
And then one more piece of Celebration news is that we have firmed up and got a reservation for our meetup at Celebration. We've actually already got some folks signed up, so that's really cool. Friday, May 27th at 7 p.m. Again, that's local time, Pacific time. We are going to go to Unsung Brewing Company, which is actually really cool. If you were with us in Chicago, we went to Wormhole, which was this 80s inspired, pop culture inspired coffee shop. This brewery is kind of like the equivalent of that, but with beer. There's also a wine place right next door to it, as well as, I think, barbecue. So it's kind of a little for everything. It's indoors, outdoors. Who knows what the weather will be like in Southern California this time of year. It's a bit of a crapshoot. But we have a sign-up form online, though, if you guys want to go check it out. cantinacast.com/RSVP. cantinacast.com/RSVP. And like Albert was showing before, we do have our website up and running.
Oh, that's the biggest
Finally.
announcement. I don't this came out of nowhere. Jonesy just like clandestine Black Ops project decided to throw a website together. So good job, man.
Oh, thanks. It's I didn't intend to, and then it happened. But yeah, so cantinacast.com is live, and you can get actually every one of our episodes that is still not in the vault that Mike has given us access to.
Oh, I have them.
And I know you do. So I'm gonna have to sideload those because I
We'll sideload.
I couldn't get them out the feed. But there's an events area too, is what the place really want to draw attention to. cantinacast.com/events. And that's where you'll find any of the links to our live streams. Like this one, we got one coming up on Thursday. It's gonna be awesome, folks. Force healing is going to be the Patreon topic for Thursday. And I went out there and found a nice Jedi healer picture from the old Expanded Universe books.
Mm-hmm.
So that was super exciting. But that's going to have all of the things, May the 4th, that we're still trying to get organized and get plans, see how we're going to work into that. All of the meetups, the links to the sign-up forms are there, the podcast stage, where we're going to be. And we'll keep putting things in that space as well. And for those on the live stream, we are kind of scrolling through it here so you can see it. So looks pretty sharp.
Looks awesome, man. Yeah, no, great job.
Really,
it looks really good.
But of course, you can find us. You can do our contact us up there. That'll shoot us an email. Of course, we do have the phone number and the email, of course, as always. But it's all there. But you can search the site, which is something we haven't had. Of course, eargluemedia.com is still perfectly intact, and we're still very much a part of Earglue Media. This has nothing as a separation or anything like that. We're just wanted our own space to be able to do a few extra things that we don't have the flexibility to do over there, but all the shows and episodes are still over on eargluemedia.com as well. So
very cool. Well done, sir. Well done.
Star Wars news.
And in Star Wars news, yeah, I saw this. So this is the new game that's coming out, right? From Skydance Interactive, Skydance Media?
Correct, yes. Skydance New Media and Amy Hennig. And
So
some people
Amy
might
Hennig-
know the name Amy Hennig quite well.
Yes.
Because she was the mastermind behind Uncharted in particular. So award-winning, game scripter, developer, and those types of things. And They say this is going to be a narrative-driven action-adventure game featuring an original story in the Star Wars galaxy. Sounds like a tagline we've had before. Oh, that's because we have. Back in 2014, Amy was attached to Visceral Games at the time, and they were going to do something similar with Project Ragtag, but that got abandoned, I think, back in 2019 or something like that a few years ago. But this is the game. There's no release date. There's no real window of time or what era this is going to be. But again, it's really exciting. If you're fans of games like God of War and the recent Spider-Man games and Uncharted, of course, and a couple others, this might be really right up your alley. And hopefully this is the beginning of, or a continuation of the shift in Star Wars video games as we get better. I think my question for you, though, Albert, is that we've got like a half dozen games that are in the pipeline right now. And really, we've only had one truly released, I think, with Jedi Fallen Order, right?
Yes.
And we've got others that are supposed to be out any day now, like the Bounty Hunter game or Hunters game. And then there's all these other ones. My question is, am I being wrong by being a little bit pessimistic that all of these will actually make it through? Because there's supposed to be like an RTS, a real-time strategy game. Oh gosh, I mean, there's several.
Yeah,
And
I'm getting my Dungeons and Dragons dice out now. Here we go. We're shaking them up. Let's see. And I got about a 23% chance that these are actually going to make it out. So
well, it's better than the Magic 8-Ball that I had. So I'd ask again tomorrow, but it's done that for like 6 months.
Yeah, it's all joking aside, it's so easy to get caught up in the excitement and all, and it's all good stuff. I mean, I'm not poo-pooing on anything here.
Right.
But at the end of the day, sometimes these projects do fall through. They don't see the light of day, as example with Ragtag. So I would say, yeah. I mean, like the Bounty Hunter game or Hunters. What is it? Bounty Hunters?
I think it's just Hunters.
Whatever.
The Switch game. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one seems like it's like a done deal. Now I've heard inklings that they may get pushed back, and there's delays, of course, and all that. But that one seems like it's going to happen. And we had the other one too, the flight simulator game that came out outside of Fallen Order.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, Squadrons or Star Wars.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Squadrons does come out. It was an EA game.
Gosh, yeah. So, and then we've got mobile. I think the mobile game space is pretty healthy still, thanks to the whales of people that spend millions of dollars on that thing to keep it alive. But
ongoing development of games that have been out there for gosh, I remember getting close to 10 years, I think, on Galaxy of Heroes.
Yeah, but no, you're right. I mean, some of these games, I don't know. It's just hard to say when they're going to come out, and there's different reasons why they don't make it out. So I'd be happy with anything at this point. It's been a while since we've really gotten super excited about Star Wars games. I mean, outside of Fallen Order and Squadrons, and even to some extent Battlefront 2, and the debacle that happened to be at the very beginning. Although I keep saying you need to go back and play that game. It's actually really good now. Sorry it took so long, but they got their act together. Yeah, we'll see. I'm excited, and I'm really excited, honestly. I posted something today about this announcement because Amy Hennig is a huge video game person, just in general. Like, she is a classic video gamer historian. She's well known. She's been in the industry forever, and I think her post on Twitter said something like, "Never tell me the odds," because her story is remarkable. We don't have time to get into it now, but her story is remarkable to get to the top of where she's at and be able to break into the video game industry and be a forefront runner in that industry as a woman. And suddenly now she's got a Star Wars game that she's at the helm of. I mean, you can't write a better story than that. So I'm super happy for her and excited that this is going to happen. So,
and again, narrative, story driven are the things that we really want in Star Wars game. I think it's the one thing that we are just really wanting more of. Jedi Fallen Order gave us that flavor of it, and now we're ready to take it to that the next step here.
And I don't want to start rumors or anything, but if we go back to Project Ragtag, that was set between episode 4 and 5. I think it was like some smugglers, or the Empire was trying to tackle like really buckle down on smugglers and crime lords and that sort of thing. And I know Han Solo was rumored to be in it at one point, and that sort of thing. So I don't know. It feels like if they do rehash that, I'd be fine with it, but I'd be okay if they just start with something completely from scratch as well.
Well, they had footage out there for it, so I mean, it made it.
I've never seen that. If that's
I found a few clips of it, and it was fairly polished. I mean, again, you have to remember this was 8 years ago, or I mean, it was probably closer to 5, 6, 7 years ago. But I mean, still, it looked pretty decent. Again, there was no real gameplay or anything like that, but there was a little bit of footage.
Yeah.
So again, it made it at least that far.
Yeah. All right. Well, exciting stuff, man. And Can't wait to see it all. Let's hope we get some. Maybe we get something at Celebration. No, probably too early.
It's probably a bit early for that one. But I think that we would get we should get a games panel though at Celebration. There's enough coming out that we should get something. It's kind of like the books, right? There's enough things, at least in the open, that we should get some sort of feedback or be able to give some sort of feedback of what's still going on and learn ideas of release dates.
Right. The people demand answers. So, okay, let's talk about our main topic tonight.
Yeah,
and
Bell and Burry.
Bell and Burryaga. Let's start with your kind of our initial thoughts, and maybe I guess that the question that I posed in the intro there of what was their role in this book, and I like asking that question just on a personal level because I like to understand, try to get in, at the end of the book when I'm done reading, I try to go back to all the characters and go, okay, what was their purpose, right? The author had a reason to put them in the book. I mean, they could have showcased a number of Jedi during the High Republic, I should say, and they chose Bell and Burryaga. And Burryaga, for the most part, I think he's probably safe to say or fair to say that he's kind of taken a backseat in a lot of ways. And I wouldn't say he was necessarily at the forefront of this one. Yeah, he's got the children books that he's kind of like he's the star of, and he's on the covers of all of them. They're all about him for obvious reasons. But for the most part, I think he kind of takes a backseat to some of the other characters. But I felt in this one, he was a little bit more at the forefront, but it did feel like it was more Bell than him. But
I agree with that. I think it was very much more focused on Bell. I think what these two characters I think brought though, and whether or not this was the purpose of them being there from a story aspect, it's not necessarily true. But when you talk about just the heart that we talked about with Rising Storm or with Fallen Star, gosh, I will do that till the day I die. But with Fallen Star, I think when you talk about heart, these are the two characters that tend to give you heart in a book. Burryaga, because he's empathetic and he's an empath and he's just this warm, realistic, but also just loving character. And then you have Bell, who's been put through the ringer, is still trying to come out that other end. And I think you really saw growth for Bell throughout this book as well.
Yeah.
And them together to see that they form this relationship and some of the things we'll talk about tonight of how far they go to, to really connect, I think is really, really cool. I think it was a good break from some of the intensity and some of the negativity that we have with Elzar and Stellan and Avar to an extent, and the chaos that's going on, with all of this. And I mean, Stephanie brought up Ember. We can't leave poor Ember out, right? But I mean, again, they were really the heart of the story. And I think, again, it really, unfortunately, I think you're right, though. I think Burryaga, or I'm inferring that this is where you're going. Burryaga was very much a character to help Bell along his journey and to show how much he's grown and to show all of that development, less so than here's Burryaga's growth and this story is about Burryaga and here's what we've done with him, which I think is unfortunate. But again, there was a lot to do in this book. You have a lot of different things. They were pulled apart in different ways. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we revisited some of this material in some other capacity a little bit further down the road.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. I think so for Burryaga, he was and it's sad because he's now gone, and and we'll eventually get to this part. I mean, I suspect
no one's
he'll be
ever
back.
really gone, Howard.
Yeah, I mean, I do, and I agree. I suspect he'll be back at some point, and we can get to some of the reasons as to why. But they were definitely there for each other when they needed each other most. But I think for Burryaga, or I guess he was there for Bell more than anything, because if you think about it, Bell goes into this book and he's reeling still from the loss of Loden Greatstorm. He's got anxiety about losing Indira Stokes. And he's just still trying to struggle with, how do I get past this? How do I move on from losing my master, losing, somebody that I love and cared for very much and deeply. And the tables are kind of flipped at the very end. And it's actually Bell, given that because he's gone through all of that and he's had a chance to talk to Orla Jareni and Indira Stokes, and he's had, a number of Jedi that have been there by his side. He's able to comfort Burryaga in his time of need once he loses Nib Assek, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool to kind of be able to see him now shift all of that, that care and the guidance and the support that Burryaga needed in that moment. Although it was kind of short lived. And I have a little bit of feedback on this one.
It was very abrupt and short lived, is being pretty nice about it.
Yeah, he was. But I think more than that, I think it was for me. It was she kind of went back and told us that was happening. Although you know what I'm saying, like it just kind of happened naturally. But then there's a moment in there at the very end of the book where she's like, "Oh, now he's being the support structure that that Burryaga needed because that's what was given to him. He's passed it down,
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
thing." And I'm paraphrasing, but it was so on the nose that I was like, "Oh, it would have been just so cool to not even put that in there and just let the audience feel that rather than be told that that was happening, right?"
Yeah. Let the characters demonstrate it and let that hold the audience's attention
Yeah,
and get the meaning that way. I would
yeah.
agree with you.
I feel like it pulled away a little bit from that, but otherwise, yeah, I would agree too. It was so short, and I get it. I mean, the ship's going down; they don't have a lot of time to grieve, and we don't know how long. I mean, it was still a short period of time, but yeah, I mean, he was stunned. Burryaga was stunned there for a while before Bell was like, "Okay, you got to pick yourself up and let's get going here. We've got other people to save, and this is what our masters would want, and all that." So, but yeah,
And
I thought they were. No, go
we
ahead.
have this contrast though too. That relationship that they're able to cultivate and shared experience and shared pain and shared empathy is something that other characters don't have, and it just shows you the very stark difference between
Mm,
Bell and Buryaga compared with Elzar and Stellan in particular. I think right,
yeah, yeah,
and how better would those characters have been if they were able to have that type of relationship and had that a bit more vulnerability between them? Would it have turned out a little bit different for them, or at least a little bit better? And maybe Elzar now would be a better place than he is now. And I think even at the end of the book, Elzar is, he's not challenging Bell as much, and I think he's finally respected, Bell, what he's been through and what his position is on things. And that he finally takes a step back. You're like, you know what, maybe how I'm doing all of this isn't quite the right way. And he's going to
yeah,
trust someone like Bell to be able to take those decisions further. But I just keep thinking about, how would the older Jedi, the elder Jedi, have benefited from these if Orla and Nib and company had made it, or they've been more open to those relationships than what how they were in Fallen Star.
yeah. There's a moment there at the very end that kind of speaks to that too. When Bell puts his foot down, he's like, "No, I'm going to look for Burryaga. Nobody's going to stop me." And Elzar's like, "Hey, you know what? I'm not
Never,
going to try." Right?
never
Like,
questioned it. Yeah,
never questioned it. I think it's also a level of respect for him too. No, I mean, I don't know what kind of conversations were being had among Elzar and Loden Greatstorm, but you got to think. I mean, they were probably talking about him and saying, "Look, he's almost there. He's almost ready." So, and it's sad because I mean, when we start talking about the characters individually, I mean, that's one of the things that really is like really saddens me about Bell is like he was right there. I mean, he was just about to. I mean, Loden had already committed, saying you were ready. I'm going to make you a knight, and all of that because of everything that's gone on has completely just taken a back seat,
derailed him.
and
Yeah,
he's okay with it. Like he doesn't. I don't know that he actually really. It's not on his mind, right? I mean, sure he thinks about it, but it's not like, man, this is what I really want. I mean, he's been so devastated. He's been through so much that no longer is what's defining him. It's really about justice for Loden Greatstorm, and it's really about this new purpose that he has in finding Burryaga and having a second chance of not just being idle and throwing their hands up and going, well, I guess there's nothing I can do, right? He's going to go make sure that that's not an excuse for him. So that whole Jedi Knight in the ceremony now is just kind of like a, hey, you know what? If it happens, it happens, but it's not what I'm driving at for here.
right. And while it's a slippery slope, I mean, to an extent, that's what a Jedi is supposed to be, right? It's not about.
Sure,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's fair.
celebrating milestones is important. Make no mistake. They're transcending into a new part of your life and a new set of responsibilities is very important, especially as we grow older and we get to certain milestones of development, right? But I think on its core, though, there's not supposed to be a lot of pomp and circumstance to it for a Jedi, right? We always expect Jedi to be a bit more,
Humble,
what's the word?
humble.
Yeah, yeah, and just nondescript about these types of things. Like, yes, it was, it felt great, but we've got work to do, and we just
Sure.
kind of keep doing it, right? And I think for Bell, I think he's finally understood that what he needs to do and the direction he needs to go now are very much focused on relationships and things that really matter as a matter of core values. Less so than what's important to the Republic in general. And that doesn't mean that they don't coincide.
Hmm.
But I think that's where the slippery slope is a little bit of, okay, where's this balance between getting a bit obsessive with things. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about Bell and Loden in particular, but what's that right balance there of saying, okay, well, chase your dreams, young fella, but, remember your training, kind of speech like from Yoda effectively.
Or don't choke on your aspirations.
That's one way to put it, Director Krennic. Yes. Okay. But I did have, so before we get into kind of each of the characters here, at the beginning of the book, I had a bit of a problem with this, like getting right into it. And I think when we got the excerpt, this was one of the excerpts we got, I had a problem with it. This idea that, the Nihil were gone, that, that everything was too easy. And this is all Bell kind of giving this narrative and this.
Yeah. His perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's almost like an opening narrative of sorts. And are they dumb? I'm just going to call a spade a spade. Like, are they dumb with how they viewed this? Do you think the Nihil were really just that effective, or Marchion Ro were that effective at making Bell and them believe that no, they really have just rolled over, and to give them this false sense of security? Or did Bell and company really truly miss something because they wanted something else so badly? He wanted to figure out what was going on with Loden so badly that and they want the war to be over so much that they were able just to accept it willingly.
I think it's fair criticism. And honestly, I'm a part of several Twitter groups that talk about books and Star Wars books in general. And there's one that's exclusively for the Fallen Star. And there was a bit of, I guess there was a bit of discourse that went on that got a little heated at times. And so the way I would say this, to be fair and objective, is I think the criticism is fair. I think if you look at it, there are some things that the Jedi do during this time, some of the mistakes that they made that just like we have to, like there has to be a level, like a suspension of disbelief there, right? You have to be able to just put that aside and go, yeah, okay, it's a story. Maybe we don't hyper focus on that. I think if you're looking at it objectively, realistically, yeah, I would agree. There are some things that are just kind of like questionable about, come on, man, really? Like all the signs are there. Why would you have not seen this? And so if you put that to the side, then I think the answer is what you're talking about. I think they're just so consumed with, we've got to stop them. We got to stop them. We got to stop them. They've never been in this position before. They've been on their heels a number of times. They've taken some great losses. They've got a thing that's this presence that's out there. They can feel the dark side in some way. They feel they're all losing their touch with the Force. They're not sure why. People are turning into husks. They've got the Dren gear. They've got multiple fronts. They're being spread out across the galaxy. So I think if you add all that up, and again, I think this is where the fair criticism comes from. Like, you got to really think about all that. It's never really just given to you and said here, and you got to piece that together from all of the media, right? It's not just the books. That's coming from what we've seen in the comics and here in the short stories, and it's a very, very intricate kind of very complex narrative that puts them in that position. And if you're only going by the books, or maybe you're only by the comic books or whatever, you have a single like perspective in that regard, then I think it's very easy to get caught up in the fact that it doesn't look like it's like this should all be kind of obvious to what's going on. So again, I don't know if I think it's criticism on two parts. Maybe one, and we've talked about this too, is it too broad? How are the people doing that aren't really reading everything? Are they getting all of it? And then two, are they making a good enough argument for that at least in the books? Because it feels like when this book came out, if you're going to tell that story and you're going to make these characters go through what they're going through and say the things that they're saying like that, then it feels like there needs to be something behind it, because I would guarantee you most people have only stuck to the books and you don't have a full picture of what's going on. So you're just kind of throwing your hands up and going, well, that seems kind of silly that they would do that, or that seems sudden,
Right. I think the Jedi are also just, they're burned out. And I think Bell gives us this, he gives us this feeling pretty clearly, is that they're just tired. Mm-hmm. They're burned out. The young ones in particular haven't had to go through this. Even the older ones haven't experienced anything like this in their time. And maybe some of the old Jedi Masters that have been around for several hundreds of years, but no one in this generation is anything close.
No, right.
And they're desperate. I mean, they're desperate for these things to finish, right? And any kind of hope they seize onto, or they're willing to seize onto any hope, rather, I guess, that looks like the war is coming to a close, and that there really is that light at the end of the tunnel. And so it was a bit of a leading question, and I had an idea where you're going with it, but I think it's, at the end of the day, it really is so much that. I don't think the Jedi are ignorant or stupid or anything like that. I think that there's some of them, they're just really desperate. at this point, and they really just want the war to be done. They just want to be over and go back to. We see this with Wreath and some of the others, right?
Yeah, I just want to go back to Coruscant and read books.
Right. What does normal look like now?
Mhm.
I mean, they're forever changed, and you know, but again, you can't figure that out if things just don't ever stop.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Wreath. I want to get back to Burryaga and Bell, but Wreath and Bell to me are two characters that are very
Very
similar in a lot
similar.
of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they both, you've got a tale of two cities. You've got one who was able to demonstrate in a lot of ways during Midnight Horizon why he was ready to be a Jedi Knight, and you got somebody like Bell in this book who I think did much more, arguably way more things than Wreath. And that's not, I don't want to pit them in that regard, but I mean, he was acting like a Jedi Knight in a lot of ways. He took a lot of responsibility. He took a lot of risks that were measured along the way in the course of this book. And then he and Burryaga just working together. So I think both of them are certainly ready to be Jedi Knights. I think they've proven that they're ready and they're of Jedi Knight caliber, even though they are kind of young still, given what we've seen them do. And a lot of this has been brought on by war. And I don't know that they would have had the same opportunities, or maybe this accelerated their readiness and put them in those positions. So, but either way, they're very similar in that regard. So it's kind of interesting to see that one is being knighted, albeit not the most ceremonious of ceremonies.
Right.
Uh, it's like in a swamp with
Rats,
a
kid, and then
yeah,
run away.
yeah. Just don't step on the rat on the way on the way out. And then you've got Bell, who's certainly ready, but just it's no longer a thing for him. So, but going back to the relationship, like they really worked well. I like the dynamic of it, and I feel like it's they're gone too soon. Yet again, another character or a pair of characters in Star Wars that we may not get to see right away. Although who knows? We don't know what Phase 3 is going to be like, but I did enjoy them working together. They did a lot of good stuff together. I mean,
They really
they
did.
got the medical bay in order twice. They came up with the plan to communicate when one of the ships was waiting to dock. Um, they figured out why they couldn't communicate. They pulled up the schematics to find the maintenance shaft in order to get back to the docking bay to kind of get back with Elzar and Stellan Geos. Here's the funny one that I had in my notes. I found it in my original notes from the first reading, and it said they restored light and life. And I went, "What the heck was I talking about then?" Because I could not remember. But if you think about it, they actually literally
Yeah, literally did.
restored the power and life support. So they restored light and life, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Hey, mission
was
accomplished.
I was being
Phase
clever.
1.
Yeah.
We're done.
For light and
Nicely
life
done.
took on a new meaning for them in this
Right.
book. And then they also sealed off they helped seal off the sections that they felt that disturbance in the forest, working with the what is it, the pilots and citizens on the space station.
Right.
They came up with the plan to let the smaller bay doors open and get those ships out first. And yeah, they let 6 Rathars go, but whatever. It's
Hey, they were playing a hunch, and it was a pretty good hunch.
yeah.
You know, so I won't lay that at their feet.
Yeah, I know. But no, and so that was kind of my list of things. But if you think about it, they had one success after another. Sure, it still blew up or fell into the
Right.
ocean.
Well, it was
However,
inevitable. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, we all saw the poster. But yeah, I thought they did quite a bit in their little trio. So I thought they worked really well together. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the relationship that they showed.
I do too. It's it was like Bell and Wreath, or not Bell and Wreath. Gosh, Wreath and Ram. Right. It was just
Yeah,
the way that they work together is just they fall into sync so well, and they just know what each other needs in any of those moments. And I think that's just so much fun to read. They're really an extension of themselves. But I also like that they challenge one another too. Right. I think it was Burryaga. I'm trying to remember the exact circumstance, but I think Burryaga was challenging him on something to where he. They had a bit of an argument, but at the same time, they always try to move forward and to figure it out. And, they're all trying to figure it out. And they understand that they're all working in the same direction, even if there's a little bit of dissonance and, from time to time.
yeah,
But I agree. I liked how well they worked together. I thought it was really cool though, when they also, and I think this is maybe a little bit better suited for maybe when we get Nibasik back, but I really wanted your take on it was their attempt at meditation together and the bond, I guess. Like, what was your take on all of that? And how did that make you feel when they were going through that?
I took it as they weren't able. Well, I don't think it was going to be successful. The way I interpreted that was everything, like they should have been capable of doing that, and they couldn't, even as close as they were sitting next to each other because of the levelers. Like that was
Yeah.
an indicator that whoa, there's something really wrong here because I can't even see him in the force. He says, I think Bell says I can barely see Burryaga in the force, even though he's just several feet away from me in a meditative stance or sit down posture, whatever. So I think that was kind of the reason why. Um, I can't remember. I don't remember the details as to why they were doing that. If it was really just to kind of calm down, find focus, get direction, maybe. I don't remember where. Do you recall why they were going into that to begin with?
I thought it was after they found Nib, but maybe it's been a while since I read the book though entirely.
Hmm.
But I think in general though, I think it was cool that they attempted it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen this some of the younger Jedi, and it's not one of those kids just trying something to be silly like what we did to Ram with turning him upside down. It
Right.
was very much we're trying to do something because we know how effective it can be.
Yeah, it was
Not
more
only
of
does
a
it,
Cantum Psi and Torben. Was it Torben Buck and Cantum Psi?
I believe so. Yeah,
I think they were the ones that had they did it and had a strong force bond. And
correct.
sorry, go on.
Yeah,
Didn't mean to cut you off.
right. Yeah. That they had referenced it. We don't really know exactly what they did. I don't think, but yeah, I think it was just cool. I mean, and again, when you have two characters that have that connection and they know they have that connection, it's also like, okay, well, why not? Let's push ourselves. Let's try to extend ourselves a little further and see what we can accomplish. And while the levelers, I think, were impacting it, I think it would have been interesting to see what that would have been like in a normal
Yeah.
circumstance to see how effective it may have been. Because I think even with like Reeth and Ram, I think that it's within their abilities to make a connection on some level in order to achieve some of that. Maybe not to the extent that like Avar Chris can do, of course,
Sure.
but
Yeah. Right.
but I think to do it one-on-one and something like that, especially, I mean, because we see it with masters and apprentices all the time.
Mm.
It's almost like, this twin bond type of thing where you just, you spend so much time and you know the other person so well that you can anticipate what they're doing. And again, the force is helping in that regard, but it's also just, you just know and you trust and they trust you. And, it's just second nature.
Yeah. There's a line in here, and I don't remember that this might be right before they actually attempt the force bond there. But it says Bell stood facing Burryaga. Yeah, it is right before the
Yeah.
force bond. Bell stood facing Burryaga, and something about that moment made him realize that their friendship had deepened these past few days, and he needed a friend more than he'd realized. And then he says, "Thanks for being here," he said quietly to Burryaga. So yeah, I mean, their relationship definitely deepened, given what they were going through and experiencing together. So that's why I kind of say I really kind of want to see what it's going to be like post phase two, and assuming he finds him, and are they going to be kind of like the Elzar man and Stellan Geos of this group? Yeah, they're both pretty powerful, and pretty. They got a lot of like promise. So be awesome to see that. Let's move into Burryaga first. I guess I wouldn't call them character dissections, but the character focus discussions here, because I think he's got a smaller role in all of this. Although he was prominent throughout the book.
Right.
I don't know if it's the language thing that gets in the way, and there was a
What is
lot.
it with Wookiee characters? It seems it was like
Yeah.
this with Chewbacca in the expanded universe and the Legends material too.
Yep.
And they wrote him out because they just got tired of writing about him.
Yeah, and a lot of his like, whenever he is brought up, it's I mean, and I get it. I mean, I'm not. This isn't feedback at all. Trust me. It's just it was always through someone else's eyes, right? They were speaking
Yeah.
for him, or speaking to what they were seeing, and I get it. Like it's an obstacle. Right? How do you get him unless he's like first person narrative? How do you get him to be able to share his thoughts and what he's saying when he doesn't speak, common or basic, or I forget. Now. I get Dungeons and Dragons and
I think
Star Wars. Is it basic in Star Wars?
But what's interesting though is with like the Hutts, they just translate it and they say translated from Huttese.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But we don't ever do it for Wookiees. It's just interesting that that's for some reason.
Instead, we get Mark Thompson doing his Wookiee.
That actually might be 100% true. They just want to hear Mark attempt to impersonate a Wookiee so they can laugh really, really hard.
Yeah.
But we talk
It's
about
not
Bell. So we talk about Bell kind of being put through the ringer. But Burryaga has those ups and downs in this book too, right? The reunion with Nevaseek, and then only to have her taken away from him after he's, kind of mildly freaking out, knowing that he needs to go find her, And so again, I think it was a bit more shallow of a curve than what we get with Bell, who's had, I don't know, the better part of 3 books to in a little bit of material on the side.
Yeah.
But it was, I think that it was good that Burryaga got something of that arc,
Mhm.
of that reunion, and then have it taken away from him as well. So everybody's, no one's safe from all of this. But at the same time, I thought it was still unfortunate we just didn't get more of it, especially with such an empathic character like Burry, especially when we think back to everything that he experienced in Light of the Jedi when when the Nihil had their very first big attack, right, and just how overwhelming it was for him at the time, and to where he's at now, to where he can control that and he can work through that. And I think a lot of that was due to Nib, but now for that that central focal point for him, that master now to be gone, he's put through the ringer as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. And I think too, I felt like he was probably more, he had more character time, I think, or more story time, in my opinion, at least as I recall, from Light of the Jedi. Like he seemed like a
I think
more
so.
focal
Yeah.
character than he was in this one. But I would agree that he did have his moments, especially at the very end when he becomes the hero, right? But that moment with Nibasik, it was like bittersweet because I remember reading it, and there's a part in there where he mentions Bell, or I think Bell mentions. I think it's from Bell's perspective, is
Yeah.
the way we take that. It says, with the gruffle, Burryaga made it clear that his master wouldn't be able to get rid of him that easily. Seeing master and apprentice so joyfully reunited made Bell's heart ache in the best way. Maybe it would be like that for him and his master Indira when she woke, if she woke. And so, like he's seeing them reunited, and of course we know how excited they both were because they hadn't seen each other in so long. Um, but, unfortunately for Bell, he still got to, like, witness that and scratch his head and go, "Man, that's not loading, and I don't know where my master is," and so, yeah, but now again, not to make this about Bell, we'll come back to that here in a little bit, but, yeah, I would agree, 'cause, right after that is when she goes missing searching for Orla Jareni, and the next time he sees her is when Bell calls him over after almost stepping on her husk of a body, and he's completely shell-shocked to be able to, seeing that, I think there was particles that were gone, like there were particles coming off of her, like seeing your
Yeah.
master laying there dead, and that's happening. My goodness, just couldn't get a break there.
Yeah. I mean, he just stood and stared. I mean, he was just completely paralyzed. And you imagine a Wookiee. I mean, we saw Chewbacca, right? When Han was killed, or when Han was thrown in carbonite, very expressive. So for a Wookiee to have all of that completely sapped out of them
Hmm.
really is something.
Um, it said Burryaga's plaintive sounds of grief stilled, but he didn't move. He stared down at the ashes that lay before him, as if the intensity of the attention could somehow resurrect Nibasik. And this is where he's just kind of, and again, I don't know how long he was there, but it did feel like he was just stuck there, and I think Bell was okay with letting him be there until he felt like, "Okay, we gotta get going, big guy, because there's more stuff to do here."
So that
Um
leads to another question, though, as a contrast to Bell. So Bell has always been, he's been a bit obsessive overloading, right?
mhm.
Now with Burryaga, I mean, he's obviously devastated, but it seems like he was able to pick up and move on in a way that Bell has not. Do you think there's anything to that? Do you think that there was something different about the way that he was trained, or that maybe how he interprets the Force, or is expressive in it, that actually prepared him better for that compared to how Bell's been experiencing it for the last year plus?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I have a question that's not in our show notes I was gonna surprise you with later on,
Oh,
that
great.
speaks to something like this as well. And it was about whether or not you felt like Bell grew up too much like Great Storm. Like, did he grow up too much like him? Does he have the characteristics of some of the older Jedi, if you will, like the Jedi that maybe we think have kind of made have had shortcomings because of how they interpret the Force and all that. And maybe I'll come back to that in a second. But I think it's a couple things. I mean, we know the relationship that Loden Greatstorm had with Bell to some extent. We know we've seen what was it? We've had the flashbacks. We got to see a lot of them obviously in Light of the Jedi. We don't know how close. I mean, I would assume they were very, very close. We don't. I guess what I'm saying is I don't know how close Nib and Burryaga were, and I don't know enough about their relationship and how she was training him to deal with these types of situations, right? How to work through all of that and how to be able to let that stuff go, and and be at peace with the fact that they've moved on and to bigger and better things through the Force. And this was all difficult for Bell. Like even at the beginning of this book, he's still kind of struggling with that. And we've
Right.
already had 2 books now where that's happened. Like he's gone. This is a full year later, and he's still got the memories. He's still got that the trauma of having lost Loden Greatstorm. So
And I think with
um,
Burryaga, he didn't have the opportunity to feel like he didn't try hard enough and then to be so close to getting them back only to lose them permanently and to
mhm.
have that completely ripped away from you. So, I mean, I wasn't trying to say that the circumstances are clearly different, but I also didn't know if Burryaga, with the way that he feels, with the ability to be more empathic, if somehow he's able to manage some of that a little bit better than Bell, or if it really was maybe just the circumstances of it's easier to lose someone and they be gone
Yeah,
than to what Bell had almost this, multiple times of losing someone.
right. Yeah, it's difficult. There to go back to Burryaga again. I think he had. Let's talk about I guess his final moments here, if you will.
Yeah, Rattar Wrangler.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I mean, it was a good fight. I guess. I mean, he did the best he could.
I mean,
It,
you're not going to win a fight with a Rattar for the most part.
yeah, and two with that. I mean,
Right.
he was kind of outnumbered, and there was a moment there where Elzar could have probably saved him. If you remember, where he was thinking about trying to
Yeah.
use the Force, but then he was worried that he would overextend himself, and then he'd have nothing left in the tank to open up the what was it, the bay doors or whatever it was.
Right.
And so he had to make that difficult decision, that difficult call of, no, I'm not going to do that. It's may the Force be with you, Burryaga.
Well, I think some of it is, and I don't think it was a bad choice either. I think
No,
it
I
was,
don't think you're. I'm just
you have to trust
yeah.
that the other person is capable, but also that that the force, that what is going to happen is because that's as the Force wills it from their perspective, or for their perspective at least.
hmm It was cool to hear too that he had, like, I never really thought much about Wookiee claws and how effective they were, but it seemed like that was one of his main offensive weapons is, burying his claws, if you will, burying his teeth kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah,
Um,
we don't really ever see that in action, do we?
no, not that. I mean, where are you at, Black Chrysanthemum? I don't know.
Right. Why do you have knuckles? Why do you have?
Yeah, just use your claws, dude. But yeah, I mean, he was. So I mean, let's talk about his survival, or could he have survived? I know there were some ideas out there. I think what was it? I think it was Bell that said Burryaga could have managed to squeeze through an airlock or on an upper level, or if he got free of the Rattars in time, he might have been able to put on an atmospheric suit and strap in, which means he would have been sucked out into space when the bay doors open. So I mean, he was trying to like come up with ideas of like how he could have survived. Uh, this one's really difficult. I mean, I think those are probably the 2 best scenarios, or the 2 best, theories as to how he could have survived. Because
Right.
he
Yeah.
wasn't he in the process of getting like, they already had identified the atmospheric suits,
Yeah, I
and I
thought he
don't
was
remember.
just getting sucked out the airlock, basically. I I didn't. I don't see where there was any opportunity for all those things to happen.
Well, so he disappeared. Okay, so the way the book, he disappears, like, with the Rathars, but then there's some time that passes before the doors open. It's not like an immediate thing, and it's in that time that I don't have a really good sense of how long that was. Was it 2 minutes? Was it 15? Was it 30? It could have been any one of those, honestly, the way it's written. But if he did get away, it was in the time, in my opinion, it's going to have to be in between the time of when he disappears up into the darkness with the Rattars and when the bay doors open. Somewhere in there, he got away, and I don't know what that means. Like, again, if he got jettisoned out into space, then what do you do with the Wookiee floating in space in a atmospheric suit? How long is that person going to live? He's just going to die as soon as he re-enters the atmosphere.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They're already in the gravity well. So, I mean, you will not survive as you're getting sucked into the atmosphere and then the heat barriers. So, which do you subscribe to? Was he still in the ship when it went down, in the station when it went down, or was he jettisoned then? Which one would you put your money on?
Mm. I am going to say that he went down with the ship and got out before it impacted.
Was one of Leox's
Parachute.
parachutes.
Yeah. Yep. No, I don't know how. I haven't really given this so much thought. That'd be fun. I kind of do want to think about this now. Not here on air because that'd be really
Right.
boring. But I would like to put some more thought into how he could have survived that fall. It's
I think
it,
pragmatically, you're almost looking. Okay, he got ejected or jettisoned or jumped into space, and maybe another ship was nearby, and he stuck to the windshield, and they flew away with him.
yeah. Or
Right.
turn the wipers on, get him off there, get that
Right.
riffraff off. Then maybe they
It was
brought him
like-
into the ship.
He's like, well, I saw Porter Engle do this once and started surfing
Yeah.
on top of a ship. Yeah.
Here's the thing about it though, like as dramatic as it was, like unless there's some crazy theory that we just haven't really thought of that's going to take Bell time to find him. I don't. We're going to the suspense is going to come in like real time. If that makes any sense, like we're going to have to wait. I don't know, 6 to 9 months before we find out. But it could be as simple as, oh, Bell walks around the corner and now, oh, there he is. I found him. Or someone reports there's a Wookiee and that's it. It's not a big climactic reveal as to how he was found or when he shows up, right? Because I just can't see how they're not going to find him right away. And it creates a lot of suspense for us because we have to wait in real time 6 to 9 months before phase 3 comes and we can figure out what happened to him.
It's longer than that, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was going to say about a year.
We won't get phase 2 until fall. It sounds like.
Okay.
Yeah, you're pushing like 2 years.
So a very long time.
Yeah.
That we'll have to wait.
Does Burryaga need to survive?
I think so.
Does he have to be alive?
I think so because if we don't, then that's just it feels like it flies in the face of what Bell's trying to stand for at the very end, right? If Claudia Gray said at the very beginning, Bell is feeling so distressed because he didn't get the chance to do anything. He just sat there idly, and even though he couldn't feel his master, now he's got all this regret and remorse because he could have done anything that maybe would have gotten had help him find him. But he didn't do that. And so now he's got an opportunity to do this. And it just doesn't feel right. Narratively speaking, I can't see an author going through and saying, oh, see, you were punishing you again. You learned a lesson and it still bit you in the butt. Doesn't seem like that's the right lesson for Bell.
Well, but could the lesson be that Bell's obsessing now and he's not accepting some things of the truth and letting go? He's actually holding on to his attachments more so than he ever has before. And now and again, I understand there's a volatility that goes with it of uncertainty. But at the same time, is it something that he's worse off by continuing to hold on and look for Burryaga just to satisfy his own conscience? I mean, is that
right?
This kind of feels like he's just doing that, right? He's just making himself feel better because he feels like he let down Loden. He's almost taking the blame for Loden not making it. I mean, he pretty much says as much too numerous times. If I would have just trusted how I felt and not listened to any of you folks, then Master Loden had a chance. And to the point where I think he actually thought he could actually completely save him altogether, and this all would have been avoidable.
Yeah.
Although it's still very much in question.
No, you're 100% right. Like there is a story there to be told, right? There is a cautionary tale that could be told with the Jedi there. Do I believe in my heart of hearts that they're going to do that with a character like Bell? No. It's kind of like the Rey thing. Like I forget we were talking about this not too long ago, but Rey, there was after was it after Last Jedi? I think there were a lot of folks, or maybe it was even after, it was probably after both movies. Oh, Rey's going to turn to the dark side.
Right.
I never once believed it. Like it's just, for me, that's not the story, right? And there's plenty of hardships. There's plenty of stuff that's going to go wrong with the Jedi. But Bell just seems like one of those characters that we have to be able to root for somebody. Someone has to be kind of our perspective, our eyes and our ears, and have these wins. And we've got to be able to rally behind someone. And if they keep knocking all of these characters and making them fault constantly, who is it? Like I don't know who it would be. I mean, maybe it's a Wreath. Maybe it's a Ram or somebody, but it just feels like this character, because he's been in all 3 books, he's been prominent. We're all rooting for him. He's got a dog for crying out loud. Why him? I mean, pick on somebody else to
Old
teach
Yeller
that
was a dog too. But.
Yeah. Well, I hate that story too. Screw that Old Yeller song, the movie. That's a
But
terrible
it's Disney.
movie.
It's about to be canon.
Ugh. Yeah, that movie's terrible. There's no lessons learned there, other than we can make you cry. Thanks. But no, okay. So all kidding aside, yeah, I think you're right. There could be a tale there for somebody, and it could be well developed. Honestly, I mean, that would be even more heartbreaking and tragic to have somebody completely obsessed and going through all of that, and getting knocked down again.
But I think it would
Maybe
be
it comes out
telling
strong.
though if someone like Elzar was able. I don't know. We've kind of shifted over into Bell a little bit here through the conduit of Burryaga.
Well,
I think
we don't have much to talk about with Burryaga anymore either, too.
yeah, right, but I think with Elzar, I think while they had that moment at the end of the book,
Mm-hmm.
I think Elzar is the type of character that Bell, I think, has a lot to learn from for this very reason, right? All the things that Elzar's been experiencing as Bell becomes more powerful and more educated in the Force, and these emotions get stronger. They don't get suppressed as easily, right? They come out more rampantly. And Elzar seems like he would be a good person to help Bell understand that once Elzar's in a better place. I'm not saying right now. Although in Star Wars, logic, Elzar's at the perfect opportunity to take on another student,
Right.
because that's how Star Wars rolls with Jedi, right? The
Let's
Jedi
just
have the
pile
infinite
on.
wisdom. Hey, you're in not great shape. Let's give you a new student. How about that?
Yep.
Oh, you're 15 and just got knighted. Here's a student.
Here's a student. Oh, and by the way, he almost went to the dark side, and he's got a lot of emotional baggage. But hey,
Right.
good luck. We're all counting on you.
You're going to do great. We're going to send you on a mission to the other side of the galaxy. Cool.
By yourself. Yep.
By yourselves with a bunch of other kids.
With a bunch of other kids, and make really important decisions that'll affect the outcome of the galaxy for years to come.
Yeah. P.S. Don't die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to give Bell a Padawan, but I don't think it'd be that. I mean, sorry, not Bell. Elzar a Padawan.
Right.
That would be very interesting, though. Like what Elzar would do if he would just
But
say,
could he
"No
he
thanks."
have a student like him, like he was to Orla?
Yeah, like more of a
Something to that
mentor, right?
effect.
Passing on. That's a good point. Like if you think about what the lessons that Orla, and we'll talk about Elzar and Stellan next week on next Tuesday show. But there's some pretty good lessons there that I thought, I mean, really, really good stuff. Like we really need to dig into it at some point. Some of the stuff that she was sharing, the wisdom, some of the advice that she was giving to him to kind of help get him through all of the emotions that he was dealing with, his loss of security, loss of confidence, and all that. But there's probably some things that I think he could pass on to somebody like Bell that would help him out. Although Bell seems so like hyper, like he does seem like a. I know it's only 2 lines, so I don't want to read too much into it, but he does feel like he's almost, to your point, almost like over dedicated now. Like he's
Yeah.
committed to the point of I'm not listening to anybody anymore, and I'm going to start making dumb decisions because I'm so hyper focused on finding Burryaga because it's my opportunity to kind of make right and not feel like a failure a second time for
Right.
somebody that I care about.
But he's effectively chasing ghosts now.
Yeah.
He's still chasing Loden, I think, in that way.
Yeah.
And I think it's very dangerous. I mean, I like that Bell finally had that moment of clarity. I think that was very important for him to feel. He finally, felt at peace with himself and about what he needed to do and what he was compelled to do and what he believes the Force is telling him to do. But it's just such a slippery slope of how much faith do you put in that when your judgment is so clouded by remorse and by loss and by really, he's still very much grieving. I mean, that they haven't done more for Bell is a little bit upsetting from a Jedi perspective. For someone who's just clearly had an extremely traumatic event, not only losing his master, but also getting subjected to, this creature, and that clearly, screwed him up. And we've seen this happen to other characters in the Jedi Order. So that they've not done as much to help him is really sad too. Where my heart just kind of breaks every time I see him go in one of these ventures where he just gets real headstrong, and you kind of want to you want to charge and cheer for him and be like, "That's right, Bell, go get him."
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like, "Oh, Bell,
Yeah.
bro, no."
Yeah, and that's a good way to kind of to summarize how his mental state going into this. He's still reeling from the trauma. I think he is I hate to say he's obsessed, but there is. I mean, there's a
He
moment
is.
where he says everywhere he looks that he was constantly being reminded of Loden. Um, and that just speaks to him not having gone through the phases of grief that he needs to, right? That last one of the last ones of being acceptance, right, and being able to kind of move on from that. He hasn't had a chance to do that, and he was scared to lose Indira's jokes. Now he's got another master that, you know,
I think that's
he,
really where it's manifesting itself most clearly
yeah,
is how he has transferred all of that obsessiveness from Loden onto Indira to the point
hmm
where he's like, it must be me. I'm failing my masters. What is it? Why does death and things follow me? It's kind of that trope. And yeah, it's really kind of concerning.
yeah. I think also with the loss of Graydon, I mean, maybe one of the positive things that came out from that is he did feel like he was more focused at the very beginning of this book in that first intro that we talked about, where
He really did. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he was like, you know, that he said, or was it for Master Loden Bell thought, and that no one else may suffer at the Nihil's hands as he suffered it, and that was kind of like what he was talking to himself, I guess, as they're going into this Nihil ship, and he felt like he was one step ahead of them. They got the breathers on before the gas came in, which is good. They finally learned that lesson. Um, but yeah, and he said it says it was a chance to move on the Nihil. Bell wanted this, needed it ever since the loss of his former master, Loden Greatstorm. Not for vengeance. Greatstorm would never have wanted that, but for the knowledge that Bell had done something, anything to counteract the evil that had robbed him his master of his life. So that kind of speaks to where he is, and he does seem like it's focused. But then I think he does him and both Burryaga at the very end of that's where we said, okay, wait a minute, this is way too easy. There was kind of like they just walked right in and rolled
Right.
over these guys, and he had other moments in this too. Like he was right about things being easy. There's a moment in there where Bell said that he felt like something was off with the current state of affairs once they got to Starlight Beacon. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he
Yeah.
knew there was something wrong going on there. And then he also had a moment there with Gira Staros where he saw her and he was like, "Hey, wait a minute, there's something weird about that too." But in all this, I mean, it's easy just to kind of brush under. Well, the levelers are there, and so they're making things very difficult, and that's probably the reason. But
It's a
kudos to him.
practical
He seems
reason.
very, very in touch with the force. He's able to kind of pick up on all this stuff, even if he's not able to kind of see it through or follow it through.
And I think those were some of the positive things about Bell, right? I
Yeah.
mean, as we're kind of giving him a hard time about here and some of these other things, but he's clearly been through a lot. But I think also you do see the strength and the power in his growth,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
I think was fantastic. And again, at the beginning of the book, you're like, oh man, he's right there. And you're right. I think it really is the leveler or some of these other things just kind of keep putting a roadblock in the way of those who are actually open and trying to solve a puzzle that know they have a puzzle in front of them. I think some of the folks, and some of the Jedi in particular, don't understand that they're putting a puzzle together. They feel like they're just kind of attacking a singular problem.
Yeah.
And I think some of the Jedi like Bell have they really do understand what they're trying to do, and they see things that some of the older Jedi maybe aren't, or maybe they're too preoccupied doing something else that they're distracted by. But Bell, man, a lot of growth going into this, and you really do feel like he at the beginning he really felt like he had overcome some of those just gut wrenching moments of grief of grief, sorry, that he had seen in the previous books, and that he just wasn't able to get over. And he finally had found a way, but unfortunately, he just kind of keeps getting dragged back into it. I mean, not all of his fault. I mean, he's continually thrown a bunch of traumatic events at him. But
Yeah. He like I said, to be fair, like yes, I guess we are saying that he's still emotionally caught up in everything going on, but he's functioning pretty well, I would think. I mean, we talked about the wins that he had there. He had the plan of separating the tower and the explosives.
he's able to
He,
pull himself together
sure,
quite
yeah,
well.
no,
Yeah.
right. I think that's what I'm saying. Like, I think he did a pretty admirable job given what he's going through still. So I think he's coping with it just fine. Although there are just moments where he gets lost in it all, and that concerns me because he's not able to move past it. So there was also him coming back to the ship after he had gotten away and decided, okay, well, I'm going to take this ship and fly it back into the bay and start rescuing people, and realize, oh, wait a minute, this feels odd. He couldn't do it physically because of what the levelers were doing. So he had to kind of, he pulled an audible about how do I get people off? And so from that perspective, I think he was, thinking on his feet as much as he could, even with the interference from the levelers. So again, he had a number of like wins throughout all of this. And that's why I say, like, I
Absolutely.
feel like he's definitely acting more as a Jedi than a Padawan, right? He's definitely leading in a lot of different ways here. So it's
And
just
I
that
think
very end.
that's why I'd like for him not to find Burryaga and to really let go of trying to find Burryaga to finally make that leap. He can be open to finding him or be open to it, but don't neglect the things you know you need to do.
Hmm.
And I would like for him to take that, if he's able to make that one step of actually letting go or, kind of putting his stuff back in check in that regard, while not letting go of his humanity, right, or his compassion. But if he's able to take that one step, I think Bell, I mean, man, you talk about a character that could really just do anything he wanted to. He's got the talent, he's got the ability, he's got the head for it. I think it's just that one step, and unfortunately for like many Jedi, it's just this concept of being able to let go
Yeah.
and move beyond a certain whatever it is that's constantly holding them back.
Steph's got a good comment here in the chat. She says, "You see it with people going through trauma all the time. While all the action is happening, they function great, but when everything is done, they fall apart." And I think,
Right, when they have time to think, right?
yeah, when they have time to think, exactly, all that starts to settle in and creep in on you again. And
It's like what Qui-Gon said, right? Feel, don't think.
yeah,
Trust your instincts. And you're right, when you're in those moments, adrenaline and I think that's when you're probably freest, though, right? That's when you can trust yourself and trust your ability and trust the force in these cases, right?
mhm.
Where it's probably when it's most natural that all those things start to fit together for you whenever you're not trying or thinking.
Yeah, and maybe that's where I think he's doing really well. Like there are people that can't get to this, right? They're so
Right.
consumed by it that they can't even in the moment when things need to be done, they can't function. And he's certainly not there. Like he's very, very functioning very well in the moment. It's just during that downtime that things really kind of start to pick at him, and his emotions get the better of him. Um, I guess we talked about him coming back to find Burryaga. I think everybody believes that Burryaga is dead at this point. Um, the line itself is where he says, "If I failed an attempt to help, okay, that would be hard, but I could look at what I'd done wrong. I could learn from it, and maybe Master Loden would have known that at least we tried. Instead, there's nothing. I did nothing." That's what he said about Loden. And then
Yeah.
later on, when he's talking about going after Burryaga, he says, we all assumed that Master Loden was lost when really he was being held captive by the Nihil. If I'd kept to the faith, if I insisted on looking for him, we'd have spared him a great deal of suffering, and we'd probably have saved his life. So I'm not giving up on anyone else like that ever again. This starts with Burryaga." So it seems like it's like, wow, it's a great statement, but is it a dangerous statement? Is he a bit reckless in some of that, and where is it going to take him? I don't know. Like it just like if if he doesn't find Burryaga immediately, then yeah, I think this could be him chasing ghosts, and I don't know where that's going to lead him, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully it's
Definitely.
not a long search.
Oh,
I hope he shows
I
up
hope
quickly.
not. I hope he gets confirmation one way or the other.
Yeah.
Because again, I think it's the comments about Loden or, trying to reduce someone's suffering or that, but saying that he probably could have saved. Those are always the red flags, right? Because now you're saying that if you would have just done something, everything would have been entirely different, and it would have worked out, and you just don't know that, and that's your hubris, and that's your your guilt talking at the same time. And I think that's what Bell's really got to get past. I mean, he's still that guilt is so still a part of who he is that there's just no way that he's going to be able to to really, and finding Burryaga, I think almost makes it worse, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, it's part guilt, and then it's also like not only did he find him dead, but it's the condition that he found his master in,
Oh
and
yeah, I
being
mean,
reunited, excuse me, being reunited with him, and then going through that emotional experience, and then moments later, seeing him, finding him basically a corpse and dust, and so all of that is it's not just I lost my master; it's in the way in which I lost him, which is I think compounds a lot of the grief and emotion that he's going through right now. Okay, so the last question that I have, and we'll kind of end it on this note, and it was really that question I mentioned about, is he too much like Loden Greatstorm? And I wasn't really kind of coming at this question from the angle of, I forget the context of what I brought it up. It's not important, I guess, at this point, but more so of the context of even when he was at the very, like, I hate to bring up Cantum Psy, but Cantum Psy is kind of like where, and what's his face?
Comac.
Comac. To me, that was kind of a pivotal moment for me for the Jedi during this era. Like it feels like that is the way forward for them to get out of this mess. Whereas feel like with somebody like Bell, he's still subscribing to the Loden Greatstorms and the Avar Chris's maybe. I don't know her. She's kind of in a weird state right now.
Are you
But
talking
of
yet?
no,
Guys talking
not yet.
yet?
Not
Okay.
yet. But more in that state of like, hey, don't shoot first, right? Let's ask questions and let's try to preserve life, and things are always good. And I feel like he's attached to that really good, earnest part of Loden Greatstorm, which I think is like as much as I love Loden Greatstorm, as much as I think we all love for what he's able to do and say and all that, I do feel like he would really struggle with fighting the Nihil because he's so in tune with the good and saving lives and all that, right? And I guess the question is going back to that: is that going to play a part into Bell Zettifar, or do you feel like at this point now that he's gone through, the trauma that he's gone through, having lost Loden Greatstorm, he's got Indira Stokes, who's on, she's okay, looks like she's going to pull through, but he lost her, lost Burryaga. Yeah, he's got his dog, but for the most part, like he's had a number of setbacks. Is that going to change his opinion or change his views on life and to the war against the Nihil, or do you feel like that's going to get in the way of it?
I think this is a transition type of discussion for the Jedi in general, maybe less so than Bell, because I think what we did see from Loden, and I'm trying to remember, Light of the Jedi, he was still very proactive. He jumped on the ship, right? So there was no hesitation, there was no fear, there was nothing like that of hesitating to take action against the Nihil. So it's a little unclear how well he would have fit because we just didn't get enough time with him in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Bell though, I think the Jedi as a whole, I think, have to move past this. And so if the question is, I think what you were referencing from Midnight Horizon was more of this take the fight to them type of thing and be less reserved with their aggressive side of things, or maybe we'll call it assertiveness rather than aggressiveness.
Yeah.
Is that what you're kind of
Yeah,
referencing?
exactly. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and Bell's getting there, right? I mean, he wants to do it, but he does have that tug to not. And I think that's healthy to have both that pull. You understand, why you would want to do it this way, but you also understand why you shouldn't. And I think there's a balance in there somewhere. You've got to say, okay, well, and you weigh the risk, right? You say, well, am I more likely to be successful if I take proactive action? Maybe not in the way that Avar has been doing on the side, or even Elzar, with him throwing halvesies on everybody. But
Yeah.
I think it's okay to consider those options. But I think you also need to have a healthy challenge to it, to where you just don't automatically go into it that way. That's the part I didn't agree with where Comac was going, is that you don't just take the fight to him over. You still challenge yourself as to how you do it, but you don't do it to the point where you are completely incapacitated. You still have to make a decision. You still have to take action, and then you live with the choices you make. And I think that's the part of the Jedi are so. Sometimes I think the Jedi are afraid of living with the choices that they make, and again, because they then they have they're riddled with guilt. They're riddled with all the decision making problems that they may have had, or this or that happened. But at the same time, it's kind of like counseling and in psychology, right? You make the best decision you can with the tools you have at the time, right? I mean, that's just the best you can do, and you have to accept that and have that right support around you in order to make sure that that's the way that that could be reality for you. It's not you just telling yourself that, but that it's actually reality, and you can move on and move forward. Maybe not move on, but just move forward.
Sure. Yeah. And learn from your mistakes and, not make them all over again. Right.
Absolutely. I mean, you're always going to feel some level of guilt on things, right? We're not saying to be callous or to be, devoid of emotion. It's just more about, I can't. There's nothing I could do about it now, but I can certainly try to do something better the next time. And yeah, I can help do things to improve whatever crappy situation I just screwed up.
Right.
All right, but
Yeah.
the next time confronted with it, I'm a little better prepared. Better prepared for that.
Right. Well, cool. I
really don't know if I answered your question at all.
No, I think you did. The way if I was to answer my own question, I can see where it could possibly get in the way, but I think he's been through enough now, and he seems like he's so focused and so determined that I don't see that being a problem.
I don't either.
for
I
him.
think he is making better choices when he's presented with problems.
Yeah.
I have fewer concerns about Bell in that regard. It's his
He-
idle time I have a problem. I'm concerned about.
He's one of the characters though that I really like him. He's not like my favorite character, but it just feels like he is bound for something great. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is just yet.
I agree.
I think
That means he's going to die.
I had said that he would be the one to take out Markion Rowe. That could still very well be Lorna D. I think she's number 2.
Yeah.
But
we'll just sacrifice Elzar. He'll go take care of it.
Yeah.
He's pretty much gone anyway.
Yeah,
so.
just send him in. Send him to the dark side and send him in.
Yeah.
Swing.
Him and Avar can hold hands and they can both take a swing.
Yep. That's what they do best is kill people. So yeah, I just don't there and I say that because just now with 3 novels behind him, I think he was kind of important in all 3 of them. Maybe not so much in Light of the Jedi. He was. I think he was. But now that we've had so much story with Bell, it does feel like he is bound for something great. This whole diversion to go find Burryaga, though, was one that just threw me for a loop. Like, okay, wait a minute, what is that going to look like? How does that play into that narrative? Maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe there's, someone else. But
And you know who Bell I think actually truly needs, the more I sit here and think about it, when we think about the stories that need to come together in phase 3, Yoda and Bell need to somehow get together and meet up, and Bell needs Yoda's guidance, I think.
I like that. I think that
Yeah.
would be. I mean, honestly, Yoda's like you could pair him with anyone, and I think he would be huge benefit. But for somebody like Bell right now, yeah, he needs that voice of reason. He needs someone to kind of ground him and refocus him and say, hey, stop chasing ghosts, and yeah, you are bound for something better, greater. So yeah, he'd be the person to do it. I think. Look who did with Canton.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think Bell is him and Wreath and Lula and Keeve, and I mean Keeve maybe on the outs, of course, and Vern, Vernestra. They're clearly the leaders of the Jedi going forward, and so these are critical times though for each of them. And Keeve's an interesting one, of course, but I think this goes to your point where you said at the beginning of the show, though. We have all these characters in all these different formats that don't always cross-pollinate across the novels to the books to the comics to the young readers, and and Burryaga, I think was your example in that one. But I think it's time for us to mix some of those characters up a little bit and really start to bring the Jedi as more of a cohesive order across all of our content. I think Wave 3 really did a better job of that. I think this is where Bell, not being as integrated with some of the other Padawans that are maybe a little bit older than him, but even like a Keeve, like Bell and Keeve, what would their friendship or relationship or camaraderie look like, right? I think that would be with what Keeve has gone through. You see how Keeve has handled everything, and then you look at Bell, and you're like, okay, Keeve is probably a little bit ahead in that regard. Now she's probably a little bit older too, but Keeve would be a really good, person for Bell to be matched with or to spend time with, and to see how she's been handling Skier, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be an interesting one too.
Would you ship
Keeve's been to
Keeve
the ringer
and-
too.
Yeah, would you ship Keeve and Bill? I'm kidding. No, I'm not. That's
No,
no,
you're not. Ask Lauren. Lauren, ship it or shove it.
Ship it or shove it. Bell and Keeve.
Bell and Keeve.
All right. Okay, well, I think we'll end the show there on that note. And I'm looking forward again to seeing where these characters go. I do, in my heart of hearts, believe that Burryaga is alive somehow. I don't know how,
Right.
but I wouldn't be. It wouldn't shock me completely if he wasn't. I do want more of them working together. I'd like to see them kind of continue their friendship and grow and develop that. But we'll have to see. I mean, we've got like a freaking year now to wait before we see any of this stuff again.
So long.
Oh, it's a tough part. I mean, maybe there's a chance for them to show like, oh yeah, we're going 150 years back, but at the same time, maybe there are like in wave 2 or wave 3 of phase 2 some stories that they're going to give us, because it just feels like that's so long to wait, and it's different. Like I get they're following the formula of the original trilogy, prequel, sequel trilogy. I think that's cool. I like it. I actually do like that. But it was very different, right? I mean, it was very different in how we ended Return of the Jedi, right? We had some like finality to it all. And this one we don't. We're like left open, like, oh my gosh, there's so much story that needs to be told in future tense. But we're going to go back to the past for 150 years, and you're going to have to wait an entire year in real time before we get to that. That's
going to be like Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Yeah, where exactly. Jumping around.
Indy will tell the story in his rocket chair and a saxophone.
Yep. So I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be a long wait. It's going to be a grueling wait if we have to truly wait until phase 3 before we get any kind of answers. So we'll see. I don't know.
And it's just their ploy to make sure you go back and reread everything, because you will have forgotten a lot of it by that point.
Yep.
I tell you what, let's do some shout outs here before we wrap up. So I wanted to say, again, from the Patreon episode, Lauren Colcab, awesome job. Fantastic show and a well put together Albert, of course. Steph, Lauren, Cole, and Jonathan, thank you guys for showing up tonight and being active in the chat. For all those in the background, we appreciate you showing up as well. For those that are listening, we do have a live stream. We do this on Tuesdays for the Generally show, and then Patreon Thursdays, we have a live stream as well. Of course, once we do that, it's in the vault. But this Thursday is pretty fun. We are going to focus on force healing, which has had some, I think in our last Generally show, last live stream on last Tuesday, there was some discussion going on in the chat as well about it. So we thought we would just take a look at it. And this always comes up from time to time about where we've seen it, how often it's happened, who can do it, how does it work? And we're going to answer all the questions you may have on Thursday. And again, that's always at 9 p.m. Central. And this week could be Thursday. So again, check us out, cantinacast.com/events if you want to see when that's scheduled. Otherwise, all the normal places, Discord, yourgluemedia.com/Discord. And all of our social medias, which are at the Cantina Cast for the most part.
Nice job.
Yeah. Oh, how do you become a Patreon member, you ask, Albert? Oh, glad you asked.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/the Cantina Cast.
Patreon.com/the Cantina Cast. Got it. Okay.
That's CANT.
All right. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back in a couple days to talk about force healing. Kind of excited about that show.
I'm super stoked about it.
It's going to be fun. I've got, and Jonesy didn't give you some of the gory questions or the deeper questions that we're getting into. It's not going to just be, oh, let's talk about when it happened. No, I've got some other stuff that I want to dig into a little bit more.
Did Ben Solo give Rey a force baby?
Yes. Clearly.
Okay.
You got to listen. If you listen to the Patreon episode, we clearly came to that conclusion that she's now been impregnated with the force through Bell.
That's right.
Through Ben. Bell. Let's ship Bell and Rey. Okay. We'll see you guys on Thursday.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.